Welcome to another episode of Management Muse. I'm your host, Cindi Baldi, and this is my husband and co-host, Jeffrey Tumlin.
Yellow! Welcome to the podcast where we try to inspire better work performance. Thanks for listening.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us today on Management Muse. I'm your host, Cindi Baldi, and my co-host,
Yellow!
Jeffrey Tumlin.
Yellow!
And today we are going to talk about
vulnerabilities in organizations, of which we're organizational vulnerabilities that the manager is often right in the middle of. And so the first one where we begin our discussion was talking about not a lot of times, but maybe, I don't know, depends on, everybody's different, but I wouldn't be surprised if once a year you're a manager, one of your people is going to bring you something. It's going to sound like a regular complaint where you can fill in the blank with something you know and move on and they'll be okay with it. But instead, it's going to actually be a red flag, canary in the coal mine, fairness issue. And you're going to have to do a full stop and address it. A lot of times managers absorb many kind of venting sessions.
Yes, it's part of the management job.
Yeah. And I would say a healthy percentage of those are just, you're there, you're listening, you're empathizing. And a lot of times you're explaining there's a hole in, hey, this seems like it's not right, but here's something you don't know. And you're filling in a gap.
I think a lot of the time, what it is that it's not really understanding like the hierarchy of values in the organization, where like they may legitimately have a complaint and everybody in the organization may know that that is something to complain about, but like no organization is perfect. It's limited resources and a decision has been made. We're going to live with it.
Yeah.
Because we have to do something else that causes it or.
Right. Yeah. That there's a lot of decisions that aren't win-lose where you're just picking to win all the time. A lot of decisions are between the lesser of two evils. I lose one way or I lose another way. And there's not, that eventually has to be communicated to people. Right. And they see the loss, but it was all going to be loss.
Yeah, there was
always going to be a loss.
Almost every decision has a cost benefit analysis associated with it. Like there's a cost to every decision.
Yeah. Yeah. Employees are going to come to you all the time with, it's a good sign when they're coming to you because they want to talk and there's things they're worried about.
And they care.
Yeah. And so, you have this assortment of reasons that people are coming to you. And if we had a set of 10 times that people are coming to you, probably 3 or 4 of them are, I don't understand why this happened. And they don't have as complete information as you. And you're trying to fill in the blank on some of that. And sometimes you would have told them about it anyway, but they just got ahead of you. It's not that you're a bad manager and not telling them. It's just that the grapevine in these areas, like people getting fired, people getting promoted, big changes in the company, this grapevine moves very quickly. And it's very hard to keep secrets. And in those cases, you will often have more information than your employees, and you'll be able to fill in the gap. And they'll say some version of, oh, okay, I get it. I see. I still might not like it, but I see how you got there. And then that's basically complaint solved. They see the bigger picture and then they kind of move on. And then sometimes they'll come to you and there'll be a complaint or something that they don't like. And you won't know what's going on either. And you'll go and you'll find out and you'll come back and and so there's all these instances where, and then sometimes they are complaining just because you're the most critical link in that organization. The manager is the most important part connecting the organization to the employee. And so people will come to you sometimes just because they're worried and they want to talk and there's a little bit of venting. And you're the go-to person for that. And they'll come and they'll say what's on their mind and then they'll move on and you'll just kind of like, yep, okay, I get it, I understand. Like, I have an example of this. One of the places that we work, one of the people who works in the company, her husband just got laid off. And so now he's trying to start his own job. And so things are very tight, and they're counting on the wife's money. And she's more nervous than she's ever been. Like, hey, what's going on? Is this company okay? Is there? And a lot of the things that she's bringing up to the manager, she just needs reassurance. And it's because something else is going on. It's this period of time. She's like, look, I don't like what's going on. I don't like why they did this. And it's been probably about 8 months, the manager has fielded more concerns from this employee, but that's because of something going on in her life right now. And you can oftentimes say, look, I hear you. I know what you got, a lot going on. Let's think through this. Let's look at the data. And you can calm people down. And then there's this small percentage of time about a very specific type of complaint, a fairness complaint. And we need to separate that from
these kinds,
all the other kinds. I'll give you an example. We work in a lot of first responders and a decent amount of fire departments. And a lot of fire departments run what's called an assessment center, which is a way that they measure people for promotion. And there's variance in how this is done, but there's typically a written test, and that generates a score. And then there's a interviewee type practical exercise assessment, and that generates a score. So you're basically pen and paper side, and then you're also doing a question and answer, responding to some real world scenarios and doing some interview questions and getting a grade on all that. And in one of the fire departments where we work, they had a new change of senior leadership, and the senior leaders decided that that second part, which was the grading part of the question and answer and the interview part, that was for advice only. Basically, we're going to pick who we like. I mean,
right. As soon as there's no criteria for who's going to be promoted, it goes to subjective. And then that's always about fairness. Even if it's not actually them picking their favorites, it will always be perceived as being unfair.
And that is exactly what happened. And so people start howling, like, this isn't right, this isn't fair, this isn't the way we do it. And it makes its way to the senior leaders, the new folks, and they point out that they've always had this discretion. It's always been there in the books. Like, we could always take this under advice and consent, and we're just doing what we could always do. And the people in the fire department say, that's not how we've done it. It's always been on the test. Everybody's like, our model for promotion has been, everybody gets tutored, you practice for these tests, you do the best you can, and then it's a meritocracy. And you're changing something that existed for a long time. And it's the senior leaders, they had a ton of other stuff to do. They were trying to make big changes in this particular fire department. There've been, just a lot of issues they're working through. And so that bubbles up, and they just want to kind of explain it away, because a lot of times the default is you can explain it away. You can explain. And so they start down the path of, well, you see, there's this rule and we could always do this, and we're just doing what we could always do. And because it was actually a fairness concern, and because in this instance, it was actually unfair, a widespread perception of unfairness, it took them a while, but eventually they actually had to stop, clear the deck, and say, okay, let's have a meeting and let's talk about this. We can do this. Should we do this? And it took them a while, and it was a much longer process, but eventually what they figured out is that they were going to, for 2 more years, do it the old way. And then in the 3rd year, they would allow the senior leaders to be picking more based on what they wanted, but they had to come up with their own criteria for what that would be. And that had to be published and agreed on. And so it was a much longer process, but essential for them to do in that case. The default of a lot of times we can fill a hole in people's knowledge when they're coming to us with concerns, but sometimes they're bringing us issues, like you said earlier, canary in the coal mine, where we actually have to do something.
I think with the example that you gave, there are times where we definitely have perceptions of injustice in organizations that employees carry. And a lot of the time it's because there's a privacy wall that's put up fair. And like things are actually being taken care of according to handbooks. And it's written down, but like, the manager can't give you the details about what's happening with somebody. Best that you can do is be like, we are handling it according to what is required in the handbook. In this case, it's so I think this is actually even kind of a special case of unfairness, because like there's nothing you can do about the privacy. Like,
sure.
And so that one, there's some explanation that you can offer. It may or may not really please people, because as soon as there's any sort of uncertainty about how something's being handled, they often jump to the conclusion that they're going to jump to about the person that is causing the perception of unfairness. So if they like that person, they're jumping to the conclusion that it's unfair against them. And if they don't like that person, they're jumping to the conclusion that the organization is unfair. The example that you gave, and why I think it's important to dissect sort of these perceptions of injustice, is that the organization is doing something that unnecessarily spins off uncertainty. And then that same process happens. Like, if I can come up with an excuse why I did well on this exam and didn't, and the other person got promoted,
right,
I'm probably not going to think to myself, it's because, I don't really get along all that well with people. And this other person's more liked. No, it's going to be, they're like the chief's crony.
Yeah. You bring up a very important point of there are times when an organization becomes vulnerable, and you just named two. And one of them is when somebody's let go and there's some type of mutual confidentiality, and everybody wants to know, well, why did they get let go? Like, what are you talking about? They've been there for 9 years. I can't believe this. And you want to try to be as honest as you can with your people. But sometimes, to respect somebody else's service and the way things happen, you're not going to disclose what's going on.
And it may not have even been something bad. I mean, we've been involved in cases where, like, somebody was just very private. Like, they had family issues going on, and they had to move across the country, and they didn't want to talk about it. And then the organization can't talk about it. But it's not so much that I do think that people do care for their coworkers. I'm not ruling that out. But when that happens, what the reason why you're getting the reaction is because everybody who's left in the organization is going, wait, that can happen to them. That means it can happen to me.
Yeah. So it's a vulnerability. Unexplained departures are a vulnerability. Promotions that involve multiple people going for it. We have a senior management spot and 3 people in the company, and they're all really good or going for it. Well,
only one's going to get it.
You're not giving it to 3.
And, you'd like to give it to 3, but you don't have 3 spots.
Yeah. And so you basically have 2 very good people going to get told no. And it's a vulnerability because you have to absorb the actual reason why. And why didn't I get the job? Well, the other person was better. Well, why? Because of these reasons. That's hard for me to absorb. It can be easier for my self-esteem to say, well, she got the job because she used to work with the CEO. They were in the same division 10 years ago. And it's only a half a step from that to sour grapes and unfairness. And in starting to get a negative perception about the very place that up until you heard that you weren't getting the job you loved. You loved so much you were going for this promotion and you were planning on putting another 10 years in. I'm making those numbers up. But there are some predictable vulnerabilities that happen in organizations where, as a manager, you want to try to step in with
early.
Yeah. Yes. With support, reassurance, sometimes with honesty, as much as you can give. No, that's probably not why they got the job, because they used to work with the boss. They got the job because they used to manage a division this size of this many million. And you haven't yet managed a division or whatever.
Yeah, something that's on the public record that can be potentially shared.
Yeah, there'll usually be a reason.
Yeah.
And when there's not, don't make one up. But
and sometimes, you mentioned the meritocracy and
in a fire department.
I know, but there are a lot of places where they try to do like a meritocracy.
Yeah, they're mostly trying to pick the best people.
Right. But that's one dimension of best.
Yeah.
And so, you have, especially when you're doing an exam like that, you can have multiple people tie.
Yeah.
And, it's legitimate for an organization to decide that, okay, you've made it through all the clear-cut filters. But look, you have 2 complaints from other employees about you.
Yeah.
Like, that's not me deciding I don't like you. That's
right.
You're going to work on your interpersonal skills. And that can very much look like favoritism. But nobody should raise somebody into management who doesn't have people skills.
Right.
Hello, Musers. Now it's time for commercial break.
Wake up, nerds. We got a book out, The Uncertainty Playbook. I think you're going to like it. 14 ideas for more success in a chaotic world. I'll give you 10 seconds worth for the whole layout. More uncertainty in our life today, it causes us to see the negative all around us and makes us less likely to pursue positive opportunities. Because we spend too much time obsessing about the negative, we spend too much time in the worst case scenario thinking and not enough in the what's possible. And so we got 14 ideas to help walk you back from that. We had a lot of fun writing it, and you think you're gonna have a lot of fun reading it. You can buy it anywhere you like. We also have eggheadpress.com as our publisher, eggheadpress.com. We'll give you a discount and a signed copy sent to you if you buy it there. Otherwise, you get it on Amazon. We don't have a problem with that.
It's also available on our websites.
Oh yeah, websites, on-demand leadership and culture.com.
I think it's also on managementmuse.com.
Probably everywhere.
Yeah, I think it's on all the websites.
It's like that movie, Everything Everywhere All at Once. Yeah, it's called The Uncertainty Playbook. I think you're gonna like it. Please check it out. Basically, these are 3 vulnerabilities of organizations where the manager has to step in and be the conduit to help keep the linkage between the employee and the company pretty smooth. And so one is when there's actual fairness concerns. The second is when people are denied promotions and you have to try to prevent them from telling a negative story about the company to soothe their esteem. And then the third vulnerability is when there's an unexplained departure and you can't, for whatever the reason, talk about all of the things you know about it. And so you're facing one of your people going through uncertainty, coming to you to try to feel better. And you've got a hand tied behind your back. And you have to navigate that situation in a way where you don't give away what you shouldn't, but reassures the other person.
Right. And so and that particular situation. I mean, it's very difficult because the rumor mill goes off.
Yep.
And once the rumor mill goes off, this is the bad side of sense making and gossip. Once the rumor mill goes off, it's very hard to reel it back in.
Very hard.
But, you know, the most basic response is, I would hire that person back in a heartbeat. Assuming that that's the case. Like, assuming that it was not an issue that was triggered by the organization. It was just an unexpected departure. It's like, I can't really share with you their private business. I would hire them back in a second.
Yep.
I think highly of them. I would write a letter of recommendation for them.
Yeah, we're doing everything we can.
Yeah.
This isn't something that we wanted.
Yeah.
Whatever you can say. Basically, you say the maximum limit of what you can say without giving away the privacy of the other person. And, you know, by the way, sometimes you'll actually tell them what happened. Like, they got fired. They got fired because they missed two key things with the two big deliverables with the client. We were in danger of losing the account. The client said, got to make a change. And so we did. Like, sometimes you just tell them. A lot of times you actually can tell people what happened, or they already know.
Well, if it's public, what happened is public, then it's not private.
Yeah. But as Cindi mentioned, there's all these instances where you're like, I mean, I know exactly the one you talked about. Like, there's somebody had a really sensitive family thing happen, and that is why they moved out of state. And it was a shock to the company, and the manager knew what happened, but like, you can't say. And here's the employee, like, what's going on? Is the job safe? Yes, your job is safe. Like, this didn't have anything to do with the company. She had to move.
And I think that is also key to this, is with dealing with employees, is like, again, some of it is that they care about the person. Like, they really don't like it when they just disappear in the night. Like, there really does need to be an end, especially for like a long-term good employee. But most of it is, am I doing something, like, now I have uncertainty. Am I doing something where I'm going to wind up just like them? Absolutely.
100%.
And that's how you're answering the question.
They say, people, the question pounding in their mind with an unexplained departure is, can this happen? It's not even, can this happen to me? It's, this can happen to me. It's declarative. This can happen to me. And so they come into your office to basically get relief from that dread, that fear. And to your point, to Cindy's point, you're having to help them basically say, look, this isn't what it seems. This is unlikely to happen to you. It's unlikely to happen to me. It's unlikely to happen to the other people on the team. This case was different. Well, why was it different? That's on the employee side. It just wasn't a company thing, or whatever. However, whatever you're able to explain. Every case is a little bit different.
Right. And it does have to have the ring of honesty. Like, we're not going to say we're going to write letters of recommendations for people if we're not.
Yeah. And you can't say you're not going to get fired if it could happen.
Right.
It could, but it's very unlikely. This situation has elements that, to protect this person who we love, we just can't talk about. But they're not company things. It's on the employee side. And most people have seen enough of that to know, oh, okay, all right, something's going on.
Well, they'll probably go back and
and bird dog it.
Yeah.
Yeah. They'll ask the person closest to them, hey, they said it wasn't on the company side. What's going on? And then, however, people need an answer to, they don't want to feel like at any time they could be fired, because it's too much uncertainty to live with. And so, the grapevine is step one in a lot of cases because it's instant. The manager, in many instances, is an immediate step two after that, because you're the conduit. Hey, what's going on?
Yeah, I mean, I think that as, management, you really have to do, like, yes, the grapevine is very, very fast. But
Yep.
the second that you are done telling the person, like maybe even while they're in the room, there should be a level of effort to communicate it to the rest of the organization, or at least the department, depending on how big the organization is. So, because the problem with the grapevine getting there first is A, it gets to tell the story, and B, people hate it.
Yeah.
Because what does it mean when you find out something from your organization through the grapevine versus through management? It means that basically you're disconnected from the communication network, and that suggests you're less important.
Yeah.
And so that's not an accurate assessment, but I mean, like, people are always trying to figure out where they stand in the social space. Yeah. And so these are cues that you're not actually part of the group. Yeah. Like psychologically part of the group. Obviously you're part of the group from a salary perspective. Yeah. And so, like, as a manager, yeah, you do have to have like the private conversations with the people who it directly impacts. But then you got to turn around and you got to make an effort to, like, even if they're not going to read their email right away, at least there's an email with a date stamp there that says, hey, we just had this news, want you to know where so-and-so is leaving, and we're going to have a goodbye something for them. Yeah. And that needs to be like so fast, like it basically needs to be on the computer and ready to, in drafts and ready to send. And, you know, you can let the person who's in front of you know, like, look, I need everybody to know what's happening because they're going to be devastated that you're going, and get it done. But get it done.
Yep. So that's good discussion. As much honesty as you can provide is better. And then helping people understand, and as you said, make sense of what happened without a negative, an anti-company narrative taking hold, because it's just going to create problems down the line. It's not a good story for people in their head to say things aren't fair here in the company. People can get fired at any time, when that's actually not true. When things are unfair, you got to fix that. Full stop.
Well, where you can, there are hurdles to being able to fix that. Yeah. And I do think that, you know, managers do hear an awful, you know, I mean, it's just part of the job, right? Like they come to you
all the time
with all their problems, generally speaking, including non-organizational sometimes. And so, you know, I do think that the gut reaction is to explain it away and maybe not really put the thought into it, but you're looking for the things that the organization is doing to unnecessarily kick up uncertainty, which then means that if there's uncertainty, there's room for subjectivity. And when when people recognize that the system is subjective, they're going to perceive it as unfair.
All right.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us today on Management Muse. We are a podcast / YouTube channel that we hope is entertaining and educational. If you are on YouTube, we would appreciate you subscribing and maybe leaving a comment and a like. If you are on any of the podcasts listening to this, we would appreciate stars, following, comments, all the good stuff. We want to say thank you to Christina, Sarah, and Rebecca, and then, of course, everybody at Design at Work. And then, just as a last-minute reminder, we also want to mention that we are management and communication professionals working in the field, but also have degrees that back us in science. All that being said, we are talking in generalities on this podcast. We do not actually know your particular situation. So proceed with common sense and maybe a little bit of experimentation on your end. And we hope that you make the world a more beautiful place by making work a more enjoyable place. See you next time on Management Muse.